I'm Arish Singhvi, a junior at MBA, and I'm also a member of the debate team. I want to introduce a very special guest. He teaches AP Comparative Government at MBA, and he himself was a phenomenal debater, I believe a quarterfinalist at the National Debate Tournament. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Clark to the podcast.
Thank you, Arish. It's great to be here with you.
So, today we're going to talk about debate and the MBA debate team. The first thing I'd like to ask you about, Coach Clark, is can you talk a little bit about the history of the MBA debate program and what attracted you to come and coach MBA's debate team?
Absolutely. MBA has what I would consider a cornerstone debate program when it comes to policy debate in the United States. The longtime director of debate, Billy Tate, from 1982 until April 2013, was actually spent a decade as the president of the National Forensics League, which is now the National Speech and Debate Association. And he's the one that really kind of took the program to national prominence, although it was a very successful program even prior to that. For instance, the Barkley Forum, the Emory tournament, which is always one of the most difficult major tournaments in the country, was won by Steve Zager, a debater in, I believe, 1976. And so, NBA debate has been on the map for a very long time. To give you an idea, it's actually NBA's first extracurricular activity. So it predated football at the school and or any other athletic program that had a debate team. Now, what that constitutes has probably shifted and changed a lot with what debate is. For those of you listening that haven't seen debate before, it's kind of eclectic. U.S. policy style has a research focus where we kind of want to, talk about all of this research that we've done, and it's very research intensive, and therefore we speak a little quicker in order to try and get out as much information as possible in that time in something that is called spreading. And that's a little, different. And so I'm sure MBA debate has changed as that has changed. But absolutely, in the 60s and 70s, MBA had great debate teams, including former Senate Majority Leader Frist was a nationally prominent debater as well. So the program's been great. Coach Billy Tate really kind of took it to prominence. And I should add one more footnote. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but one of the significant things that Billy Tate did was he created the Southern Bell Forum, which is one of the major tournaments of the year. It's an octafinals tournament, which means that the top 16 teams at the tournament get a bid to the Tournament of Champions. And he created it with kind of a different emphasis than normal, in that instead of prioritizing kind of the breadth and seeing how many teams you can possibly bring, there's been a concentration on only bringing your very best team from each squad, so that it's a smaller tournament, but arguably the most difficult of any tournament in the country because of the high concentration of very good teams. And while today we allow more than just one team, there's still a very high concentration of the top 25 teams in the country that attend. And it doesn't matter where you are in the bracket. For round 6, for instance, you could be 2-4 or 5-1 and debate a top 15 team. So it's very competitive for that reason. It's also a tournament that became known for its hospitality. Billy Tate was very much someone who believed in hospitality. He would go around and throw goo-goo clusters at various debaters. There was a coach's reception the day before the tournament where he would pass out strawberries dipped in powdered sugar. He would dip the strawberry in the powdered sugar for you. He was a very funny, eclectic person who really cared and developed the program. And yeah, that's kind of the program then transitioned. Director of debate and current coach Kevin Hamrick took charge in 2013 with Billy Tate's passing. With him as a director, the team rose to new heights of prominence, and I've been here for 10 years, and I've now been the director for 3.
Wow, that's amazing. I don't think any other debate team probably has such a history like that.
There are lots of really good debate programs, but I think MBA is unique for a lot of different ways.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to ask more specifically, what do you think has made the debate team so successful over all these years?
That is a great question. I think it is the fact that there's kind of a focus on overall excellence and at the same time camaraderie at the school. And I think MBA is very good at that. So, one of the unique things about debate at MBA is it's considered a sport. So, a lot of people that would be able to compete in an athletic event can choose debate to do every day after school instead. And so I think it can be great for a lot of students to know that they have an avenue for competition outside of something purely physical, which is absolutely valuable as well. Um, but to know that you can beat someone with your mind and your research and your critical thinking skills is also something that's fun. And when you get to be around a group of other students who kind of share those goals, a fun camaraderie can exist. And I'm very proud of the great group of boys we have this year, and how well they get along, and how they are a team. And I think that's one of the things that can really help a program gain momentum and continue to be competitive year after year.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Can you speak a little bit more about the community that exists among even different debate squads within the debate community, different debate coaches,
Yeah.
etc.?
So the national policy community, there's thousands and thousands of teams across the country that do policy debate in some form. A lot of them do various forms of debate that include policy debate, but there are, maybe a couple hundred schools that really attempt to do national policy debate, and so the community at that level is smaller, and so we get to see each other every weekend and develop a camaraderie through that. Also, our debaters get to go to camps over the summer where they meet uh, other like-minded individuals who um, think doing research is fun, and try and speak fast and say witty things during their free time. And they find other people who have those same interests. And so going to a tournament on a weekend, in Chicago, you get to see your friend from Dallas and your friend from New York and your friend from Boston and your friend from San Francisco, that you met at debate camp, and that you keep track of and keep in communications with during the year. And so, every time we go to a tournament, I see a lot of our a lot of our team get to see their friends, and that's a fun thing to see as a coach. From a coaching perspective too, I get to make friends that live all across the country that do this funny thing that we do.
Definitely. So you mentioned that a lot of our listeners probably are not very familiar with policy debate itself. Can you speak to some of the benefits of it? What skills do students get out of it? What do they go on to do?
Yeah, policy debate, I think, is very hard. It's very, very hard. And I think that that's what's so great about it. It I've heard it likened to a form of high-speed chess with infinite amount of variables. So, instead of relying on set game pieces, you have to create your own game pieces via research. And, with the intro, introduction of the internet, and the the fact that a lot of academic articles, both through legal and non illegal means, are accessible to savvy high school students, they're able to find lots of them and put an emphasis on uh, finding great research and finding the type of evidence that will help prove their point. And so I think policy debate is wonderful for that reason, is because it incentivizes students to research both things that they're passionate about and things that will help them inside of a round. And I think they cultivate an immense amount of knowledge about our annual topic. This year, it's wealth redistribution, specifically basic income, Social Security, and federal jobs guarantee. But they get to know so much about that. Then the other thing that Mr. Joya, our headmaster who retired last year, always pointed out was that debate is a switch side activity, which means it's not supposed to create someone who is dogmatic or ideological about issues. It's someone who can be sympathetic because they've researched both sides of an issue extensively because they have to debate both sides of an issue. And our hope is that a policy debater can understand both sides of issues, even if they maintain the original opinion that they've had on various political, social, cultural issues. They'll at least know the arguments that are on both sides because they will have had to argue them. So we think that that's a unique skill as well. So you put in the research, you put in switch side debating, you add some critical thinking and being quick on your feet. And policy debate is really hard, but I think that it really helps shape a student, a debater, into being an excellent student.
Yeah, that's definitely incredibly unique. So, when it comes to coaching, do you have a certain philosophy for how you think it works best within debate or perhaps within competitive activities in general and how that brings about success?
In terms of an underlying philosophy, I think as a coach, I want to remain flexible. I want to promote the interests that my students have and express interest in the things that they have interest in. The things that I want my debate team to always try and represent is I want them to be good citizens. The debate community is just that. It's a community. And so, whether we win or lose, it's very important to me that our debaters attempt to make the community a better place through their actions and be good citizens of that. And also making sure that the climate around our debate team is one of friendship and community as well. And then secondly, I don't think it's bad to compete. I don't think that it's, I think that is a great incentive for young folks to learn more and find more out. And so teaching, kind of incentivizing that sort of competition as a driving force, I think can be a unifying factor as well. And so always, seeking to make yourself better and putting an emphasis on self-betterment, through speech reduce, through increased research, and seeing each student drive each other by, setting the example for maybe a puritanical work ethic is something that I like to see and something that I also admire about lots of different programs that MBA has.
Yeah, you mentioned being good citizens. One of those things that you've helped foster over the years is helping the urban debate leagues that operate on a more local level. Can you talk about some of your efforts there and what you've done to help them?
Yes. So when I was in college, at Cal State Fullerton, my coach, John Bruschke, and Dr. John Bruschke, and then my friends, both Sue Peterson and Sylvia Simons, ran the Southern California Urban Debate League, or the Scuttle, and that was my first foray into coaching. And it was such a rewarding experience to me that it led me to eventually graduate and then begin teaching and coaching myself. And uh, I saw both what it did for me as a coach and what it did for some of the students that I was able to work with in terms of changing trajectories of life. That the Urban Debate League as an institution is something I have great respect for. And since we came here, my wife and I, in various capacities, have some years a lot, and then some years a little less, have attempted to help the program, the Nashville Urban Debate League that runs through Davidson County Schools, run their league, which has a tournament per month and helps 12 plus high schools learn policy debate. And through that, our debate team has been able to help as well, both mentoring different high schools as well as acting as coaches or judges at local competitions. And it's something that's really helped the league during that time. And so it's an ongoing effort, and I'm privileged to currently be a board member. My wife used to be the president of the board. And yeah, it's just something that our family is very puts a lot of priority on, and something that we've been privileged to work with as the MBA debate team.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for doing that. So, lastly, what I want to talk about is this year's debate topic itself, economic or fiscal redistribution. You mentioned some of the elements that we've been talking about. What have you learned from discussing fiscal redistribution for the last 6 months, and what do you think about it? How's your perspective changed? How have debaters' perspectives changed about it?
Well, fiscal redistribution is both. It's a interesting topic and a very good source of controversy that allows for both sides of the issue to be debated. From the negative side, I think that our debaters have learned a lot about the economy and how the economy could possibly react in various sectors, in investment markets, the way that corporations might react or even become competitors with the government, and then the possible certainly short term, but potentially long term consequences that a massive fiscal redistributive policy could have, specifically like a basic income or a federal jobs guarantee. The topic overall, we've talked much less about the expansion of Social Security, but I think the type of things that would expand that would not have the same adverse effect. So it would not. We would not focus on that when we're having our discussions in our research. However, on the flip side of that, it's also been interesting to read about how much artificial intelligence has the possibility of upsetting the way that we work and what our economy will potentially look like. There are lots of different people who kind of look through the globe in order to try and predict the future, but it could be inside of a decade that somewhere between 1/3 to 40% of jobs could potentially be displaced by artificial intelligence, and not enough are then generated in order to make sure that the United States the world really as a whole will have enough jobs to work. So what does that post-work society look like? It could be, very much a different form of capitalism than we currently have that may necessitate a basic income in order to make sure that everyone is taken care of, and then hopefully incentivize others to continue working in order to have, continue to cultivate innovation and make sure that we direct artificial intelligence in the most ethical way possible. I've also learned just I mentioned the possible negative side effects short term, but the importance of dealing with poverty and growing inequality. And while some advanced countries have seen a decrease in socioeconomic inequality as the countries have developed economically, on the flip side, we've also seen inequality, the standard of living overall rise in the United States, but that economic inequality has actually risen. And our status on the Human Development Index has continued to fall. And, we trail a lot of European countries in terms of different statistics of quality of life standards. And so, could a potentially a basic income or a federal jobs guarantee help with that? So those are I think the biggest issues that we've been discussing and learning about. And I don't have any of the right answers, but they've been fascinating to read about on both sides of the topic.
It's definitely a tricky sort of Goldilocks to try to get the exact right policy. And yeah, you're right. A lot of these policy issues that we debate over definitely do not have one specific correct answer that's universally been decided on, which is why we debate. So before we conclude, I'd like to ask you, Coach, do you have any last messages that you'd like to leave the listeners with, or anyone who's potentially considering joining debate as an activity?
I would. I think debate is a wonderful activity. It's shaped my life for the positive, and a lot of the debaters that I've had the privilege to see come through these doors. My wife and I met at a college debate tournament. I hope that one day my daughter can debate, and my son as well. My daughter's 12 and my son is 3, which is why there was kind of a gap between those two. But I think that it is a very difficult activity, but I also think that doing hard things is good. And I think that especially at the high school level, I think that's taking something on like this can really be a stepstone to success, no matter what sector of the world you go into. Whether it's we have a couple of former debaters that write for the New York Times, or former debaters that are on the Supreme Court. Washington is chock full of policy debaters. We have plenty even represented in Hollywood. But I love it. It's a wonderful activity, and I am happy that I've got to spend up until now part of my life doing it. I will mention one more thing. Me doing debate was an accident. I played football in high school, and my mom involuntarily signed me up for debate before my junior year while I was at football camp. And I came back and I had no interest. I was like, Mom, why'd you sign me up for this? And she's like, just go once. If you don't like it, you can transfer out. And I went, and I loved it. And so I'd encourage anyone, even if you have a negative perspective of what it could be, to come try it. It might be your thing.
Wow, that's an amazing story. All right, Coach. Thank you so much for your time today. And this was extremely insightful. Hopefully our listeners got to get a little peek into what debate is like. Thank you all for listening.